Story time is starting now. Mrs. Claus will show us how. Tales of wonder, tales of fun. Come and join in, everyone.
Hello children, and welcome to Mrs. Claus Storytime. I'm so excited to read you a story today. This one is very special to me. It's one of my favourites, and I love it so much that I know it off by heart. It's called Cinderella, and I'm sure some of you know the story already. So if you're sitting comfortably, I shall begin. Once upon a time, there was a kind young girl named Cinderella. She lived with her stepmother and her two stepsisters, who were as bossy as they were lazy. They loved fine clothes, pretty ribbons, and staring at themselves in the mirror. But when it came to chores, they made Cinderella do absolutely everything. Poor Cinderella. She swept the floors, scrubbed the pots, polished the shoes, and even had to pick up after the cat. They called her Cinderella because she was always covered in ashes from cleaning the fireplace. But one morning, a royal messenger came riding through the town, blowing his trumpet so loudly that all the hens in the village laid their eggs out of fright. Hear ye, he said. The king and queen invite every young lady to a grand ball at the palace. The prince will be there. Well, the stepsisters shrieked so loudly that they startled the neighbour's dog. The prince will fall in love with me, shouted one of them. No me, no me. And they spun around so much that they knocked over the stew pot. Oh, that's all right. Cinderella can clear it up, they said. And they ran out of the kitchen. For days, they ordered Cinderella about. Cinderella, fix my dress. Curl my hair, Cinderella. Cinderella, fetch my necklace. She did it all, whilst quietly wishing she too could go to the ball. At last, the night of the ball arrived. The stepmother and the sisters clomped out of the door in gowns so wide that they had to shuffle sideways to fit through the door. And just before they left, Cinderella gathered her courage and asked softly, Stepmother, may I go to the ball too? Well, the stepsisters burst into laughter. You? In your rags? Don't be ridiculous. The stepmother sniffed. A girl? Covered in soot in the royal palace? Stay home, Cinderella. The palace is no place for a girl like you. They swept out, leaving her alone by the fire. And poor Cinderella's eyes filled with tears. Oh, I do so wish I could go, she whispered. Suddenly, poof, a shimmer of light filled the room and a sparkly woman with a twinkling wand appeared out of thin air. Well, Cinderella jumped back. Who are you? She gasped. The woman smiled warmly. Why, I'm your fairy godmother, of course, and I'm here to make sure that your wish comes true. Cinderella's mouth dropped open. You mean I can go to the ball? Indeed you can, said the fairy godmother, with a little help. And she twirled her wand. Swish! And Cinderella's rags turned into a gown that shimmered like starlight. Another wave. Swish! And on her feet appeared glass slippers that glittered like diamonds. And out in the garden, the fairy godmother tapped a pumpkin and it grew into a golden carriage. And mice became horses and the dog became a coachman. But the cat refused and simply curled up back by the fire. Cinderella gasped. Oh, it's wonderful. But will it last forever? Her fairy godmother shook her head gently. No, my dear. Magic is a wonderful thing, but it doesn't last on its own. This spell will fade at midnight. When the great clock chimes 12, everything will return to how it was. Your gown will be rags again, your slippers will vanish, and the carriage will turn back into a pumpkin. And the horses will be mice once more. Cinderella nodded. So I must leave before the last stroke of midnight? Exactly, said the fairy godmother. Now go enjoy yourself, dance to your heart's content, but watch the time carefully. At the palace, the ball was dazzling. Music swirled, chandeliers sparkled, and cakes taller than Jack's beanstalk lined the tables. When Cinderella entered, the whole room gasped. The prince's eyes lit up, and he hurried over and bowed. "May I have this dance?" he said. "Oh, yes, thank you," said Cinderella, her cheeks glowing. They danced and laughed as if they'd known each other forever, and even the grumpiest lords found themselves smiling. But then, bong, 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 the great palace clock began to strike. Its deep booming filled the hall, and Cinderella's eyes flew wide. "Oh no, it's midnight!" Bong! She hurried across the ballroom, her slippers clicking on the marble. Bong! She ran down the great staircase, her gown losing its shimmer. Bong! The chandeliers flickered as if the magic itself was fading, and at the last moment one of her slippers slipped from her foot, but she didn't dare stop. She leapt into the carriage, which shrank into a pumpkin before she reached home. The horses squeaked back into mice. Her gown faded to rags once more, and she found herself by the fire. The next morning, the prince declared he would search for the young woman whose foot fit the glass slipper, and he travelled the kingdom. At Cinderella's house, the stepsisters tried everything. One squashed and one squeezed, and one even tried buttering her foot to make it slide in. But the slipper, it flew right across the room and landed in a porridge bowl. At last, Cinderella stepped forward. "May I try?" she asked. The sisters scoffed, but she slipped her foot in and it fit perfectly. At that moment, her fairy godmother appeared again with a twinkle, and Cinderella's gown shimmered brighter than ever. The prince smiled with delight. "Oh, it's you! I've been searching everywhere. I would very much like to see you again, but perhaps we could take a walk in the gardens and talk." Cinderella smiled softly. "Oh, yes, I'd like that." And so Cinderella and the prince spent many happy times together, walking, laughing, and getting to know one another. And in time, their friendship grew into love, and one day they decided to get married. And from that day on, Cinderella lived happily ever after, reminding everyone that kindness, patience, and a little courage to speak up can change everything. Well, children, that's the end of our story today. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed telling it to you. I do hope you'll join me again another day. But for now, I'll say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Now the story's tucked away. We had magic here today. Smile.